just for us to be able to go through this before it goes to the council and so that everybody knows the information that's been provided. I still would like to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves so it's on the record. Ray, do you want to start?
Yeah. Ray Towery, City Manager for the City of Sweet Home.
Larry Horton, community member on the Health Committee.
Sean Morgan, Community Services Officer with Sweet Home Police Department.
Our audience. Okay.
Jeff Lynn with the Sweet Home Police Department.
Bob Dalton with the Health Committee.
Dick?
And Dick Knowles, community member.
Lisa Gorley, City Council and the chair of this committee. So since Brock is not here, Ray, do you want to kick off your, are you ready to kick off with your Walla Walla information?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, tell us about it.
Yeah. Can we take just a moment to try? Apparently Shirley's trying to get in.
Sure.
She's having
Sure.
difficulty. I'm trying to find details.
So if you click on that, there should be a, if you go to the agenda, yeah, hit on the agenda, and then in the agenda, it has the live.sweethome.gov or log.gov.
Okay, yeah, awesome. I'm gonna try it.
And then she'll have to,
Has anyone heard from Brock at all? Surprised he's not here.
I exchanged text messages with him today, but we didn't talk about the meeting tonight. So,
And the last slide presentation he sent out, that's the last I've heard from him.
That's the last I heard from him
Yeah.
as well.
Me too.
Maybe Shirley has more information for us. We can get her online.
getting there, sorry.
Just
Just
wait.
so
It's
that-
okay.
Just so that some of you know, I invited Rob to come tonight. Rob is very much interested in helping us. He works for CTC and he has some skill sets that we hopefully will be able to put to work for him. He is a surveyor. He's done mapping of projects and stuff. So I've tried to get him up to date and invited him so that he could hear more tonight. So just so all of you know who he is and why he's here. He's here to listen probably more than anything.
Can you tell me what CTC means?
Cascade Timber Consulting.
Did you hear that, Dick?
I did.
Okay.
Okay.
I think he got volunteered by Milt Moran to participate with us.
I was invited and, I'm told. Yeah, well, no, he presented. Yes, good timing for me. I was looking for
Way to serve.
an opportunity like this, yeah.
Perfect. Well, we're glad to have you.
If for whatever reason you
Yeah.
get feedback or whatnot, when this is green, it means it's on.
Okay.
It's always hard to tell Milton no.
I haven't been able to do it yet.
Well, we're glad to have you. So, is she going to be able to get on? Oh, you called her. Okay. I thought she was trying to log in. Okay.
Trying to think. If you want to get her email address, maybe I can email her a link real quick.
So does she know you're trying to get a hold of her?
She was reaching out to me.
Okay.
You'll have to just tell me what it is, Sean, because my email's not on that machine.
Shirley Bird, SHI
B. Okay. Just typed it into the wrong computer. Early bird at, what was it?
The wrong kind of bird.
Oh. I can't even see that far.
I can't either.
Spelled out.
All one word.
Of course I do.
Hey, you're doing really good in my opinion.
Is that right, Jeff? Okay. .com.
Org.org.
Oh, that's not right. Try this. FAC for the homeless.org, right?
Yep.
Okay. Message failed to send. Try again. Of course it did. SHIRLEYBYRD. FAC for the homeless.org. There you go. Tell her to check her email.
I just texted Brock and he said he's trying to get in,
Great.
but he can't get in.
So Dick, this is the first time you've been able to get in
How'd you do it?
and nobody else can. What'd you do?
Just bad luck, I guess. Yeah, it zipped me right through.
Oh, there's Brock.
Hi, Brock.
Hello, I am so sorry. We've been trying to get in for quite some time here, and I have Shirley with me.
Ah, there we go.
Good.
Yay, I am so sorry. We've been trying to figure out how to get in, and it's been a little tricky.
Well, we're glad you made it.
Technology is like that. It's just when you think you've got it down, something happens.
Oh, well, and it's between Teams and Zoom and all the different configurations, so it's been a little tricky, but I am absolutely available to answer any questions you may have, and hopefully each of you got a copy of the presentation, the latest update, as well. I did create a narrative to go along with it. So that narrative and the presentation went to this committee and our committee, the subcommittee as well. I did send a copy to Ray.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, oh, Brock, would you and Shirley introduce yourself? We have a guest tonight.
Yeah, let me.
There you are.
Right here, and I'm not sure it's showing up or not, but my name is Brian Myers. I'm a manager for Family Assistance Resource Center Group.
I'm Shirley Bird. I am the Executive Director of Family Assistance and Resource Center Group.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about your presentation.
All right.
What's going to have to happen is we're going to look at it, and then in the next community healthcare committee meeting, vote to pass it on to the council. So it has to come through that committee to be approved. Okay. So could you maybe explain where you're at? And because I apologize, I didn't see that it come in, and so I just noticed that it had. And
Okay. Let me pull it up. I had actually thought that the health committee in the last meeting approved to move it on to the council, and we've been revising it as, well, I don't know to what means, but we've been improving it and continually working it. And I've been taking feedback from the team members, but I had thought it had already moved on, that we were going to present to the council.
I thought we approved the project, but I don't know that we approved to move it to council.
Okay.
So Ray, do you know offhand without going back and looking?
I wasn't here.
Okay,
So
sorry.
I was touring the facility in Walla Walla when you guys met. So
I am absolutely happy to bring it up again, and we can go through the slides. I know that Dr. Horton had a lot of inputs, and anyway, there were quite a few. Bob, yeah, Bob had quite a few inputs, and I want to make sure that we incorporate those inputs. And I felt I had incorporated many of those inputs, and we wanted to keep it fairly succinct and short. And I later got a recommendation to maybe do a narrative. So I did at least give my narrative. Now, as a group here, we may want to give a different narrative. I'm not sure who's going to be presenting it. It may be either me or Dr. Horton that presents it, or you as the health committee and such, but I'm flexible.
So first we'll go back and look between now and the healthcare committee meeting and make sure whether or not what was the language of the approval, and to make sure that we have our T's crossed and our I's dotted. Then I would not be presenting this. That would
No.
be you guys. Okay.
That would be
So
What I would see happening, Brock, would be that more than likely I'll be put on the spot to say something, and I would end up giving a real brief narrative and then turning it over to you to do your presentation.
okay.
That's the
Absolutely.
process I would see probably happening, is if everyone agrees to that.
And
Is
I'll
that
be
good?
happy to answer any questions I can.
And so at this point, let's go to feedback and an open discussion about the presentation, where we're at on it. Okay.
Well, I'm wondering if we need to actually show the presentation. It's only 11 slides with some backup slides. That wouldn't take that long. Plus, I think it would help Rob kind of get a feel for what we're talking about.
Okay.
And I
Is that the link you sent me?
probably,
This one? This.
yes,
Okay.
but I think it'd be a good idea to go
Yeah.
through it.
That's awesome. So
So can you bring that up, Brock?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Have that, and then I need to go to this, and
so I'm going to apologize right now for interrupting.
absolutely.
Lisa, can I have the floor for just a minute?
Absolutely.
So I wasn't here last meeting. I'm not sure exactly what happened. My concern though is, at least my thought, what I thought the process was that we were going to go through the operations, the manual, operations manual, policies and procedures document. And I know I've spoken with a couple of you about that. If this document isn't incredibly thorough and vetted, I think there's going to be a ton of potential resistance, and we're kind of leaving ourselves hanging out there. So I just, before we move on to the presentation, I guess I just want to ask to make sure, did we thoroughly vet the document? Because that's what's on the agenda.
Yes, it is. Yes,
the
it is on the
procedure.
agenda tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we want to do that before we get into the presentation? My understanding was that we would all go through the document.
So I do have some feedback on that. So I don't have a problem with that, but that is an FAC document. And you can certainly vet it, and we can certainly consider that. But at consideration right now is, do we get the property or not? And I won't put any more effort into said document until we get a property. And then this committee that we get, which is a 7-person board, a sub-board of FAC, will then definitely go through and make sure that we meet the requirements of Sweet Home. But I don't want this to become an FAC, we're going to vet FAC's policies and procedures, because then it becomes all emphasis on FAC. And if you want a different organization, you're sure welcome to do that. But at this point, it's all about the conversation of having the city have a conversation with the county and get the piece of property. And then we get a subboard, and then we put in, the components and such. And if this is about FAC, I will probably revoke that, because here's the deal: it's about the city and what they want to do. And FAC has gone out and got a $150,000 grant for the city, has offered additional funds for the city, and it is about this committee, which is going to be composed of Sweet Home community members. But if it's all about the policies and procedures, I think we're on the wrong track here.
So Brock, I appreciate your sentiments. It is normal process for any kind of partnership that would be developed, that we would go through the language of the document and ask questions.
Absolutely.
And
I don't have a
yes,
problem with that.
and we have that piece tonight.
Okay.
If you're going to be bringing a presentation to the council, we also need to look at that and make sure that you're on the same page as our needs on the council and not wasting your time giving us the wrong information. And so this is just the way it is to get that partnership the way it's supposed to be. And because we have an obligation, because we are talking about a city's partnership with you. So on that, Sean,
I certainly
say something?
appreciate that. And I
Yes.
don't understand the full dynamics and such, and I get that. But again, I want to caution that we have limited resources and funds and charter. And I want to make sure that we as an organization focus our energies and such in a particular fashion. And I'm absolutely open to all that. I just want to caution that we don't get too hung up on it, because the Sweet Home Committee can go through all this and decide what is best for Sweet Home. And I want to make sure that this group understands there is that level of flexibility for Sweet Home, that it isn't an FAC only dynamic, but I don't want this to become a big giant working meeting to figure out how to rework FAC, right?
Okay, Sean?
So I had a question. As I'm looking through this, I realized I'm looking at an FAC policy document here. And I'm a little bit confused about what we're after here. I thought we were looking for kind of the operations for the center itself and not necessarily all of FAC's effort, which is a little more far flung than just Sweet Home, or a little wider. I didn't see that in there. I was wondering what the connection was to the sleep center operations part of this. And I see the Walla Walla manual here, and section 6 of that discusses specifically the sleep center and the rules and so forth, for several pages. Brock, is that really what, or maybe is that what we're looking for here? Or are we looking? Maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
kind
think
of the
that
confusion
some
here.
of the confusion is that this is in fact an FAC manual, of which there is a subcomponent called a sleep center, which I did incorporate all of the Walla Walla actions and such, because FAC does work for the homeless and such, of which the sleep center is a component of all the work. And so what I'm hearing is that we may need to dissect this and pull it out specifically for Sweet Home, I guess.
I
It
think
gets
that
complicated because, I mean, it's like, in a sense, like a contract. I mean, whether it's us or New Hope or some other organization running a sleep center, we are using the policy and procedures manual from Walla Walla, which we modified for the city of Sweet Home, because we don't typically run a sleep center. We run homeless outreach and those dynamics, and we have incorporated those policies and procedures to run a sleep center. But regardless if this gets approved or not, we are running an organization that provides services for the homeless and houseless in Lynn County. And so that, I think that's some of the confusion, is that I presented a FAC policy and procedures document, of which there is a subcomponent for the city of Sweet Home, but it's a subcomponent.
Okay, Ray?
Yes.
If I might, I totally back Sean's point of view, question, whatever. That's exactly the direction I'm coming from too.
Thank you. So we're turning it over to Ray at this point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Brock, I think both you and, if I hear you correctly, both you and Sean are kind of saying the same thing, but in a different manner.
Mm-hmm.
We are not interested in dictating how FAC operates, but I think the council is very interested in dictating how the sleep center operates. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what our goal was tonight, to go over the sleep center and how the sleep center would function and operate, not to try and dictate FAC's operations in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. No,
Does
I
that make sense?
get that. And I think some of our slides reflect the operations of the sleep center. I'm not sure exactly what pages of the 150 to 200 pages where those components are. And that's where I get a little concerned. But we can go through the presentation part of it, or, I mean, we can go through the detail part of it. It's just, you're going to have to remind me which pages and which aspects you have either concerns or considerations and such. I absolutely agree.
Rock, could I ask you a quick question? I think it's a quick question anyway. I'm looking at Walla Walla's document. Have you seen their document?
They're the ones that provided their document to me, which I incorporated into ours. Yeah.
In their document, they have major sections identified: business conduct, board of directors, financial, risk management, etc. They eventually get to an item 6, which says sleeping center program. And under that, it lists everything that you have in your slides. And I'm
And
just
I believe
wondering
we
if we
should
just
have the
need,
same item 6.
pardon me?
We should, in fact, have the same item 6.
I never saw anything that was that clearly stated in your document.
Okay.
And I might be wrong, but
I will, you know, I took their document and that is the basis for a lot of our document as well, except I had to modify it for our board of directors, our voting rights, our, you know, considerations and such. But let me, I guess, take an action item to look at item 6 and make sure that it is incorporated. But
and I would say clearly identified, because I think it's all in your document. It's just that the items are not consolidated into one section that just says sleep center.
Okay.
And I think that would solve Ray's issue. I think it would solve your issue. No one's trying to change.
well, part of it is that there hasn't been agreement on a sleep center, so we have not put in a sleep center in our document because there is no sleep center. So that's part of it's the chicken and egg dynamic, in that we are obliged by the state of Oregon to submit our official documents. And this is, in fact, it will be an adjustment to an official document.
Sure.
I'll take a look and such, but it's like the chicken and egg thing, right? I can't add sleep center if there is no property to add a sleep center.
So you're exactly right with the chicken and the egg. I'm sorry.
No, please do. Please do.
But Brock, what I'm going to tell you is, in my opinion, the council's not going to, and someone please, particularly Councilor Gorley,
No, I'm with you on it.
I don't think the council is going to want to enter into an agreement to take property for a sleep center if they don't understand how the sleep center is going to function and operate. So I hear what you're saying, and maybe the solution is the sleep center document is not
Part of this.
right. Maybe it's a City of Sweet Home document that we all just adopt and utilize and agree to utilize in our future agreement to operate the facility, if that's easier for you, perhaps.
I don't know how to answer that because I will have to look through the document to find the sleep center section in our document, if it's there fully. As I may have changed the dynamic of sleep center, but I'm happy to do that, because if you look at the city of Walla Walla, the city of Walla Walla owns the property, and they, in a sense, it's like a contract with a group that runs the sleep center. And we need to make sure that the interaction dynamic is similar, or that was the assumption I was going by, right? That it's an agreement between the city and the county, and the city would, hopefully the county will transfer that property to the city, and there are certain responsibilities by the city, and there are certain responsibilities by the group that is providing services. And that's what I thought I was including in this document. But I will, I guess, need to go through it also, because it is literally 100+ pages.
Yeah.
And I did acquire their document and modify it for us, because we were not normally in the business of providing a sleep center.
Yes,
Go ahead. No, you're fine. This is an open discussion.
Well, I want to make sure that we provide you with the means that you are requesting. So it sounds like I need to really review section 6 and make sure that we have incorporated section 6 and modified it for the City of Sweet Home, and that when we appoint this sub board, I'm still trying to evaluate the legal ramifications, as well as with our insurance companies, on the aspect of this 7-person sub-board that would run, that would be members of the community that would run the sleep center and decide on policies and procedures, because it's a sweet home policy and procedure. It's not necessarily an FAC, and I want to make sure that we, you know, work within those boundaries and such, right?
Yes,
You could decide a year from now that, well, it's not FAC, we want to give it that contract in a sense to someone else, but we want to make sure that we are great stewards of the overall process. But I thought this overall thing was simply to provide a negotiation point and an approval for the city of Sweet Home to negotiate with the city, with the county, to get a piece of property. Because to be honest with you, we don't have the resources to spend unlimited project management, unlimited budgeting, unlimited all these aspects if we don't even have a piece of property. And that's what I struggle with a little bit. But I want to make sure that we at least have the language that you want to have within either our policy, or you can call it within yours, or either or both. Or this is where maybe I need to meet with you and Sean and the community to make sure that it matches what it is you want. Our goal is to provide housing and a shelter for low barrier type individuals, and we are taking extraordinary efforts to make sure that we do that. But we don't want to do all the work. I mean, it has to be your community and your policies and your guidelines and your approvals.
So, Brock, as a city councilor, the piece of property that we use or that we contribute, work together to make happen, is actually, to me, the smallest piece of this puzzle. Making sure that all of the language and the partnership is vetted out to where that everybody is satisfied with it is the bigger piece. And
Okay.
so since the original goal was to create a sleep center, the other pieces are all very important, but we do need to lay a foundation in a way that our council is comfortable with moving forward. I'm not
Okay.
worried about the piece of property at this point. That's going to happen. We're invested
Okay.
in making something happen. We're at
Right.
100% invested in that. But we do need to make sure that we move down the right path with the right people to where that it ends up with something that our community can be proud of. And
I
that's
agree.
very important to our council.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more completely. I agree.
So in the documents you gave us, that is for, as we talked in the last meeting, another phase. Initially, we need to get a plan of how this is going to be ran, the partners that are at it to create this location that has the hygiene necessary, the mobility that it needs, and the shelters that it needs in place to make this occur in a timely fashion. And that's phase one, is getting that piece in. So you're going to go back and look at the Walla Walla Sleeping Center rules, the sleeping center admission requirements, and the policy and procedures manual. But are you going to add the dealing with police inquiries and that kind of thing as well? You're going to take this piece and add in to make it a little bit more comprehensive, because they will ask you about those things. Ray, did you want this entire thing, or were you looking at pieces of it? Because I'm looking at the language here as what we need, right?
I think so.
Did we lose him? Okay.
Brock, are you there?
Well, and if I'm going the wrong direction, let me know. Okay, because I think that's what we need.
Yeah, I think that what we're looking at is in the document. I think it starts on page 54, and what they've called it is permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
Now, the other issue is his document, I don't see page numbers.
Yeah, that is a problem.
So,
Because I thought we were going to come through and just pull out page
Right.
58, page
right,
100.
so I'm not sure how to insert page numbers here.
If I might add, the page numbering issue is common to most of what we're looking at. And that would be helpful. I spent a couple of hours trying to figure out, even his narrative doesn't quite match, so.
Is this on a computer format to where we can just have it?
Aging, I would think it would.
Yeah, I'm trying
Should be.
to do that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I tried that too. And the problem is it won't match his, but it's better than nothing.
Insert. So it's going to be 5 pages off when we number it, I believe. Yes. So let's get to
Well, is he still trying to get back on? As we're sitting here in total silence, Lisa, have you had an opportunity to look at Walla Wallas at all?
Just tonight.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen it, but I like the way that it's organized. It's item number 6. It pretty well delineates everything that I think needs to be said.
That's basically what the council needs to hear, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And I guess that's why I'd ask Lisa to take a look and see if that answers. So that
I am so sorry we dropped off.
are you still dropped off?
Nope, we're back on. Sorry.
Okay.
We're through Shirley's phone. I don't know what happened to my system.
I would ask Brock, do you have a copy of Walla Wallas there in front of you?
I do not at this moment. I'll have to search through my emails and our policies and procedures.
I've just asked Lisa Gorley, our representative to the council, to take a look at their section 6 and see if that answers most of the questions that she feels might come up in the conversation in front of the council.
I would concur, and if that is agreeable, I will add that section 6 as a section of our documentation if it's not there already.
That's the same note. That's the same note that I had on my notes. That's the way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Brock, I went through the FAC document twice. And to me, my first take was I was lost. Second take, I got more absorbed into it. And it really made me understand how the FAC works as a whole to provide a multitude layers of services to a community, where I think our focus was on the section 6 of what Walla Walla. It was site specific for Sweet Home. And I think if you were able to pull that out of your document into this format, that's to me what I'm looking for, at least. And I think everyone else in this room, and maybe I'm seeing nods of head, that would be the same thing. That's what we want to see.
Yeah,
I
my
would
guess, my guess would be the council's not going to want to read 100 and some odd pages.
That's right.
No, and that was the request to look at our policies and procedures. And so I provided that as an FAC document. But if we can, let's just step back for a moment, look at Walla Walla section 6, and if that is agreeable, we'll just implement section 6.
And Brock, this is Jeff Lynn, and I would add that if you've reviewed Walla Walla, and I know you have, prior to even taking it to council, why include it in your policies and procedures at this point? You know, if it's all acceptable, that this would potentially be how the sleep center would operate, couldn't we just take that forward itself without you going through the headache, the hassle of even incorporating it right now into your organization's complete policies, and that might cover all of the bases. I just don't want to see you do additional work if we have the information we need, and until we get some.
No, you are exactly right on, because if I were to incorporate, I have to submit it to the state of Oregon, and we have to do a lot of other aspects with our insurance and other things. But you are exactly right on. So if that's the document that Sweet Home wants, except we take everything called Walla Walla and translate it to Sweet Home, I'm comfortable with that, because our goal is in fact to run it nearly exact. I want the subcommittee, the 7 committee subcommittee that we designate and acquire, to then use that document, and they may modify it for the needs specifically to Sweet Home, because Sweet Home doesn't have a behavioral environment. They don't work with Providence. They work with Samaritan. And I had believed that most of that was incorporated, but I think you're right on with that. If we can agree to that, I'm good with that as well.
Well, was there, based on your recollection of Walla Wallace, was there anything in there associated with their sleep center program that FAC would be opposed to, or
No.
we need to discuss here at this meeting?
No. We will implement what the needs and the committee, which is made up of Sweet Home members, wants to implement. I think you found a good compromise for us to move forward on, because yes, you're right. I didn't incorporate all the language because it's the chicken and egg thing, and we won't incorporate it until we have it, and then we'll incorporate it. So I apologize for, I guess I have to look out for FAC and the methodology for FAC, and we should have probably just taken the Walla Walla document and did some modifications and said, here's what Walla Walla did, was successful. Is there anything disagreeable to that? And go from there. I think you're right on with that idea. But FAC does not have any
So I have a
concerns with
question.
Walla Walla operation.
I have a question. Do we have permission? Would we be able to get permission from Walla Walla to use this document and rebrand it?
Jordan, who's the
Absolutely.
director, sent it to me.
Okay.
He said, yeah,
Yeah.
do with it what you
It-
need, what you please.
This.
And we had-
It's pretty much,
Council. This
it's
would
pretty
be
much
okay
an
with
open,
council.
open document, yeah.
Yes, and they want to help us all that they can.
One thing I would add, Brock, is to put page numbers.
Correct.
You put it as you're doing a table of contents. I know the council's going to say on page 7 of the document you provided, there's a question. Here's my question. And
Yep.
you're going to need to know what is on page 7. We're going to need to know what's on page 7.
Yeah.
So if you could number the pages and then do the table of contents with the correct pages, that'd help us all as we're talking about the document.
Towards the back on 6010, there is a reference to Conestoga huts are assigned as they become available. We might want to take off the word Conestoga and just
Huts.
huts.
It may or may not be a Conestoga.
Agreed.
Is there anything else anybody sees?
I guess my question
kinda
would be,
skimmed
can
through it.
you have this ready by Monday, which is our official health committee meeting, right?
Yeah, we can get that section. So it would be section 6.
Formatted for Sweet Home.
Formatted for Sweet Home easily. Should we also format 12, which is volunteer duties, or is that going to fall under FAC?
I was assuming we would do the section 6 in its entirety.
Yeah.
Okay, so just 6.
Yes.
I think that gives us a
That's
kind
fine.
of
Yeah.
All
a
of
baseline to address in with the 7-member board could
Perfect.
address and focus on a lot of the specific details in that.
We can do that.
And I think that gets you where you want to be back on your timeline to have this established. So,
Oh, I would be really, really happy if we could clarify that section 6 with pages. If you can get that to us before the meeting on Monday night, that would be
can.
wonderful. So we all have a chance to review it.
I will.
And so on Monday night, when we are all here, we can go through the document and say yes or no. If there's corrections that need to be made, we make them. But that'll give all of us time to review it. I don't know how many pages that section is,
It's
but
only
it's,
about 10 pages.
yeah, it's
so-
only 10 or so pages. So I can imagine on Monday night, we could wrap it up and
And
have a document that could be presented to the board.
So Larry, if I might, you keep talking about Monday night, but I think the regular meeting is the third Monday, and that's 2 Mondays.
Is it?
We had scheduled ourselves for tonight and possibly next Monday, the 9th. So I'm okay with the second interim meeting, but the full meeting is actually the 16th, not the 9th.
I was thinking Monday night, that
Yeah,
this coming Monday
Right,
night.
right.
So
Yeah, we had-
maybe this group here needs to meet again on Monday night.
I would agree there.
Okay.
And Brock, I would offer that if you don't have time to tackle this, Sean and I can help do it as well.
Perfect. I'll work with
By Sean and I mean Sean.
Yeah, I'll work with Sean, and yeah, I will get on it. Section 6, and I'll look to see where it is in ours because it is intermingled. But I'll make sure that we specifically use section 6 and go through section 6, and I'll work with Sean to make sure that we go through that, and then I'll pass that by the subcommittee.
All right, so next Monday night, we're going to be meeting at 6 o'clock again to go through that revised document that you're talking about, section 6.
council
Correct.
will be probably asking you questions regarding how this will be financed and be able to be prepared to answer as best as you can on those questions. It would help. So,
Okay, I know from our perspective, so we have some funds for 2020. I know I just recently, I don't know if everybody on this committee knows, but I did receive approval for $150,000 for 2022. I'm sorry, 2021 this year, but 2022, $150,000 for their sleep center, but there's also transitional housing monies within there and such. So it was, granted FAC for a variety of things. I don't know the other monies. I know Dr. Horton and I worked on a proposal for an additional 30,000. And I know I've heard rumor of there may be some other city monies directed towards this. I don't know what all the monies are. I know from my perspective and working with Dr. Horton, what we've worked on, but there may be other funds in existence. And I am working with a couple of grant writers my goal there is to actually acquire about $1 million towards not just Sweet Home, but Lynn County in action. So there may be some sub monies from that as well.
So Brock, this 150,000 that you're talking about acquiring, is that for Lynn County in general? Or
It
Sweet Home
is for
specific?
Family Assistance and Resource Center group to provide a sleep center and transitional housing for Lynn, in a sense, East Lynn County.
I guess I would ask Ray and Lisa, I know I've heard that there was $50,000 set aside. Is that public knowledge? Is it knowledge? I mean, can Brock include that as he's talking about funding? Can he include that 50,000 as money to go towards the sleep center?
It was voted on by the council. So it's been done.
Okay.
The first 50 is separate from the other piece because we knew we would need money to get it kicked off. And yet we were going to need money to attract grant money, that kind of thing. And so there is a total of the money that came in from the pot money is what we're utilizing. And
Okay.
so it's a total of 111 is what that came out to. I'm going to guess
That sounds
just over $100,000. But the second half of the money, you have to come back to council and request it. But there's a commitment there for that, and it's sitting
And
in
I
the
didn't
general
want
fund.
to see anything from anybody outside of FAC because I don't want to imply anything other than what I can officially imply from our perspective. So that's why I kind of left that budget aspect out. But I want this group to understand that we did get the 150,000, and I plan on dedicating all entire $150,000 towards Sweet Home. But it's not necessarily all for the Sweet Center. It has to do with labor. It has to do with transitional housing. It has a lot of components to it because we provide, services for the houseless and homeless, and it includes a lot of things. So I didn't want to say, oh, it's for all the resources that will be staffed at Sleep Center, or it's all for the Conestoga, or whatever we decide the huts should be, and so on and so forth. And I didn't want to assume anything outside of the work that we had done. I know Dr. Horton has been working really diligently, and we work together, and we're pretty confident we'll get that additional 30,000.
And for that 30,000, I had to turn in a proposed budget.
Yes.
And it was basically a $360,000 project. But the $360,000, much of that was through in kind,
Yes.
the grading and that type of activity. I put a price tag on it, but I also said that we would most likely get it donated by people in the community.
Correct.
Likewise, the hub where services would be provided. What I wrote into the grant was that we were going to be getting a building from the city and putting it on the site, and that building was worth $100,000. And
that was generous.
Yeah, I was. And that we would that would be an in-kind donation, and that looks a lot better than what it's probably worth is $5,000 or $10,000 maybe. Any rate, dollars,
right,
pesos or something.
Right.
And I am working on the other components of when we have to develop the site and provide the other functions and such. So I am trying to derive I guess we can do an overall sample budget
I'd say a
and
proposed
show you
budget.
what funds we've generated towards that budget. And we're redesigning. FAC is actually getting ready, hopefully soon, to release an entirely new website, of which a major fundraising component is directed towards the city as home and the sweep center. But we are working on raising money as well, because it is about what Dr. Horton said. It'll be about $360,000 at least startup.
How does everyone feel about a proposed budget? Is that something that the counselors would want to see, even though it's, at this point, it's very fluid?
A tentative budget would be good. Tentative budget.
Tentative budget would be good. So Brock, I mean,
I will add that slide.
You have seen the one that I developed, and if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to talk it over with you. Like I said, I'm counting on a lot of donations, so.
No, we'll put that in as the basis, and we'll
Yep.
show what funds are in fact dedicated towards that already. We'll put the 150, we'll put a tentative 30, and I wanted to ask permission before I did the 50, because yes, I had heard it, but I'm kind of the school of I'll believe it when I see it, and I don't want to apply things to the city.
Right. You want to say something?
I think it would be appropriate for you to say, the city has budgeted 50,000
Okay.
or to go towards alleviating homelessness in our community and issues that accompany it. And then I think the council will I don't think that's inappropriate. It's budgeted.
It's reflected in the minutes even of the,
Yeah,
of the
it's in
council
the
meeting.
budget.
They voted it in,
Right.
and I will tell you, it was unanimous. Each council member, for their various reasons, they're not all the same, but they would like to see this happen. They're excited about this happening, but at the same time, there are concerns, and it really does need to meet that standard that they're looking for.
And I like the idea of saying it's dedicated towards homeless, not necessarily the camp, but that you are working in that function. And then the city can decide, is it all of it? And so on and so forth. So I will put that in that component, and as you stated there.
Good.
Brock, one thing I was going to mention that we talked a little bit about during the last meeting was the staffing model that you had alluded to.
Yes.
I think that's overly ambitious to have 2 staff on 24/7. I just think it sounds fantastic, but is that going to be sustainable? And I think, the sustainability piece of this is going to be huge. And so is there another
because
model?
our insurance requires that. And so we can certainly get volunteers, and I think it will be financially less money because we hope to have a staff member as well as a volunteer, but we always have to have 2 on. And if you take 2 on times 365 days times 24 hours, it's about $180,000 at $15 an hour. We're hoping to pay better than that for our staffing and such, because we have some other means by which we're doing that. But I agree. We just have to show what a staffing component is, because in order to provide 724 support, the reality is you're not going to have 6. You're going to have more individuals than that, of which are fractional FTE. But we, as part of our insurance, have to have 2 on because of security issues and concerns.
2 on 24/7, is that what your insurance is requiring?
Well, or as an organization, this is again where that subcommittee of Sweet Home could say, and Walla Walla, to be honest, here's how they staff it. They only staff it for a certain amount of hours, and they have volunteers. So they have 1 real member that is paid. They have volunteers, and then actually between the hours of 10 and 6 a.m., the city police manager. And I don't want to presume that for this organization or this proposal. So I didn't propose that, but that is certainly an option. But what I wanted to reflect is it takes essentially 2 FTE 24 hours.
So you may not be aware, the building that is the city's annex that would be available
Mhm.
does have a bathroom. It has a small meeting room. It has an entrance that opens up to there. But it was also used to take fines and things. And so it's also a secure building with a clear window to be able to talk to people and be safely behind that glass. And so I just wanted to put that out there for you that
Absolutely.
as you think about this, that there is a different level of security with this particular building that you may get with others.
I love that. And I didn't also want to presume that you were giving the building to this operation. I mean, we've been having conversations, but absolutely. If that's the case, I will certainly put all of this in, and we can certainly do it for, I believe, less money, because we do in fact have a great volunteer staff, and we will, I believe, seek really good qualified volunteers. And we may end up with certain 8-hour periods with 2 volunteers that are qualified, that have the credentialing, that have the approval, and so on and so forth. And that saves us a whole shift of 2 people. But in order to, I guess, do zero-based budgeting, it's 6 FTE, whether we pay them or not. We can decide whether we pay them or not, you know, what the dynamic is, but it's 6 FTE for 24 hours, or, you know, in a 24-hour period. It's 2 FTE for every 8 hours, 3 shifts at 8 hours.
So Ray, would it take a council action to move, to determine to utilize that building, since we had already discussed Detroit having it and they've,
I believe the council's specific motion was to gift it to Detroit.
okay,
So I think the council would just have to say, yeah, we're going to use it for, we're going to keep the building
okay.
essentially and use it for our own purposes.
Would we want to do that the same night we have this discussion, preemptively have language that would benefit us so that we could move that at any time without having to worry about another council action later to benefit our needs of setting up this development?
My suggestion would be to introduce this to the council, hold a couple of other opportunities for the public to be involved
Okay,
and give their feedback. And then once we've incorporated all that, which you could do that all within a matter of a week, right? Just have a couple of nights during the same week or a Thursday and a Monday, so that at your next council meeting, you could come back and say, and certainly there would be a couple of counselors that would attend those, just so that the public has had the opportunity to be aware. And then we've taken public input yet again, as we've done with these meetings. Council has heard it. We've gotten more public input. And then at that meeting, because they will have seen the overall plan from the presentation, and then put it all in front of them at once. That would be my suggestion.
okay. You're right. It could be done in a timely manner. So I think that,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that.
And I apologize. I don't know. I haven't worked with a government and a council. So some of my past experience has been in a different dynamic, and I don't want to presume what you want to do with your assets and such. But I am happy to work with Sean, and I'll work with Ray to make sure that we reflect not only the presentation, but, you know, the Section 6 and such for the city of Sweet Home. I can only, at this instance, until we have a piece of property and it's granted to us, you know, I can represent FAC as FAC. So I we are flexible and we want to make sure that we meet needs and requirements of your community and do it in a manner in which is, successful for you.
Okay.
Luckily, there are several bureaucrats sitting in this circle, I think, to help us get through that process as I look around this
It's
room.
funny because I started looking up how
Or
to
former bureaucrats.
get consensus on ideas, and there are two types of styles of thinking, and I am here's what it is and here's how we do it, and then there's the how do you build consensus and do those things, and that's what I'm not as good at, and so I do apologize for that.
So can we see your slides?
I'm not logged in through that method. I couldn't get in through my computer. I'm on Shirley's phone right now. If Sean or someone else could share that would.
I can email it to her.
Oh, I have the one that was emailed. I haven't seen them yet. I thought we were going to look over them and say thumbs up and thumbs down on a few of them, but we could.
No,
I'd
let's
like
go ahead.
everybody to discuss it before we go to the next. So everybody has seen this. Everybody is.
And I also did a short narrative for each of the slides, and I'm happy to. Well, as Dr. Horton presented, he's going to do a section, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I've been trying to incorporate any comments from, in the case of Bob Dalton, Dr. Horton, and Dr. Dick. Dick also had some feedback.
Dr. Dick.
So I wanted to make sure that I incorporated everybody's feedback in this, because it's really, we're a steward of what it is you as a community want to provide, and we're a facilitator. We're not trying to dictate, it's going to be this way. So we're flexible.
If you'll give me just a minute, I think I can log in from my computer
I would appreciate it.
So
and show it.
Yeah, you probably got a copy of it.
Yeah, I got that. I've got it up here.
Lisa, did you get the narrative that goes with the slideshow?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I've been completely engulfed in setting up meetings that start tomorrow night. So anyway, while he's bringing that up, we have the Walla Walla 6 Sleep Center in its entirety, modified, branded, and ready for us to utilize. We have a tentative budget, a meeting on the 16th, and a video slideshow being vetted for the city council meeting, right?
Are we going to do the 9th?
Yeah.
I wasn't, not if we do the 16th. Do we need the 9th and the 16th, guys?
Yes.
The 9th would give the smaller group the opportunity to really give feedback.
Okay, 9th and
And
16th.
then the 16th, hopefully it'll be polished and the
Ready to
health
go.
committee can say, yay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's another meeting and I don't like them either, but.
All right.
That's why we're bureaucrats.
Speak for yourself.
Did I miss anything else? We got that? Okay.
How you doing, Ray? You're there.
Yeah, I think we got it up here.
Okay.
I am, however, not a Google.
Just punch on picture 1 and then picture 2, and
That's what we're going to do. I can't get rid of that yellow box, though.
I can't read what it says.
You know, I might move.
For whatever reason, my computer's not letting me click anything. Easy, Sean. Let me try. Maybe it needs this mouse. No.
Nothing works.
So does everybody have a copy of it?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
With me.
So, my point with the
All right.
slide one was acknowledging that it was a cross-functional committee composed of community members and council members and partners and things like that. Slide 2. This was definitely a recommendation by one of the folks on this group, and I do like. It was kind of our mission and vision compiled together. Let's see here. Trying to look at my own notes here.
Haha. There it is.
All right.
Okay, slide 3.
That doesn't
It was just basically some of the components of why we were putting this solution together. And the emphasis with slide 3 is certainly, the right to rest and such, but it now provides the city a means to perform needed ordinance and actions. And if we have a consolidated location, we can, help the community in a variety of ways and such. And then, I emphasize the sections here that I think are important, but it's a better approach. We can consolidate services. We can help people, not only the houseless people, but, folks of the community, because believe it or not, FEC gets between 2 and 5 calls a week, not for the homeless, but just people going, hey, my mom is aging and needs some help with some housing or whatever solutions. And we actually answer those questions as well. Any questions there? Slide
I think
4.
you did a good job of stating all the different reasons as to why we're wanting to do this. You talk about, cleaning up basically Main Street, and you talk about helping the homeless. I mean, to me, those are our two goals: help the homeless and help the community clean up, not sleeping in the hallways. So you did a good job of listing it right there, bullet by bullet.
Well, and to be honest with you, this is our presentation. It's really, I'm trying to hear what it is this community wants and reflect that, because we're just a steward of your action, we're not trying to direct those actions. And that's why I'm somewhat hesitant on some of the budget aspects and such. But
I would just ask this group right here, is there anything on there that's missing? I think he's hit it pretty well, really.
okay. Slide 4, it's just one of those, here's our goals and such. And that was just from the work that we did. And, the emphasis, it's twofold. One, we want to reduce, I think it's important we emphasize the reduction of impact to downtown businesses, because you've seen what's happened to Salem, you've seen what's happened to Portland. We don't want that in our community. But from FAC's standpoint, we were in the business of providing services and help, and to get people from, in a sense, point A to point B, and less on, the business aspect. But I think it's an important aspect of what we're trying to do. And then, yeah.
I don't see anything up there that says that you're wanting to really help the homeless. You're reducing the length of time that they are homeless, but you don't say anything about helping them get services in that.
Well, we should
To me, that's a
increase
major
the
goal.
access to permanent housing and accessible to all those in need. but maybe we need to emphasize the homeless. Yeah.
Well,
I think what Larry's kind of getting at, I was looking at the same thing up there. This gives individuals an opportunity to be introduced to other services that can help better their lives. And that could be mental health. It could be your housing assistance. It could be your financial assistance. It could be education and job stability. I mean, those are some of the things that if you've got them here, you can start introducing them into these other elements. So
Okay.
I think that's an important
so you
piece.
can add another bullet, I guess.
I will
Say
add those components to actually say that. I agree. Let's be, specific and say that. That's a good idea.
And I hope you're hard skinned. I hope you're not thin skinned, Brock.
No, not at all.
Okay. I've known people that would not appreciate the criticism, but it's not criticism. It's trying to be constructive to make it the best we can make it.
No, I have my stake in this is to make one, I can't stand what's happening to Portland. So I even use the term don't Portland, are what we're doing. And to be honest with you, we're just here to provide a solution in a manner in which is acceptable to the city of Sweet Home. So
Glad you're here.
And I value
not
greatly
thin-skinned at all.
your input because the people around this room know what the council needs to hear to make this successful in that relationship. So going through this is actually an important step.
Perfect. Absolutely. I totally agree. So I'm not thin. I will add whatever components you want to add because again, I haven't done this before.
I think the other part that it demonstrates to our citizens that the city is committed to improving this. I think that's one thing that this program will demonstrate that we are doing something.
I would agree. And I guess from my perspective, I don't want to emphasize this is just for homeless because to be honest with you, when we had the fires last year, all those individuals could have used this service. And most of them aren't normally homeless. So it's for the community. And I guess that's what I also want to emphasize. It's not just for the homeless. We do have about 45 individuals that are chronically homeless that have, more serious issues than normal. And we want to cater to them as well. But this is really a community action. And that's where, I need help from, in a sense, everyone to emphasize that aspect. I don't care who it is. We'll help anyone. Well, the next one with the, what is it? I tried to summarize it and I don't like this slide, but it is a summary or bulleted list of components of what it is we're trying to implement. If someone has a suggestion of a better way, I'm absolutely open. I described the property. I described the boundaries for which we're trying to do individualized shelters and RV spots and tents. I tried to emphasize the advocacy and restrooms and stability and mailing and, some of the things we would provide. But if someone has a better way of either presenting it or emphasizing what you would like to emphasize for Sweet Home, I am absolutely flexible and open.
So do you have a proposed site map? Have you developed a proposed site map? I saw a
Rough draft before.
Have we lost him?
No, I'm here. I
Okay.
can
Okay.
hear you. What was the question?
Oh, is there? Okay.
A site map.
So on slide where it is, I have a Google Maps showing the plat, And then I had one of our folks, or Shirley had one of our folks, do a sample of a layout. It will be a little bit different dynamic in this layout, but the emphasis is that there are 7 acres there. And to be honest with you, it's 30 shelters. There's space. Legally, they have to be spaced a minimum of 6 feet apart. They're 8 by 12 or 8 by 13 size huts. If we did the Conestoga, if we did different, it would be different, but they have to be 6 feet apart. I didn't want to presume that we would get the I guess the police station, so I didn't put it in there, but we reflected our shower trailer and the things that FAC would provide, but we can modify this to the needs of your community.
Do you have a slide in there? I was thinking that you had a slide.
Yes, that is slide 7, I believe. Let me look here. I don't know. You know, I'm sorry. I'm working off of my phone and her phone, and
Yeah, I think we've got it up.
slide 6. The diagram of the property. It's a 7-acre parcel, is what we're kind of talking about, and that it would be accessible to transportation services, partner services, and I didn't put the building in. Well, the one building is, but I don't think the big building is. So we want to make sure that the building is incorporated, but I had heard it had been dedicated to the other city, and then I just, again, I can work with Ray and Sean and we can reflect it exactly how we would like to reflect it. I just didn't want to presume that we got the building or not.
I'm just wondering if the council would appreciate something that would really show in the slide 30 huts and where you'd put them, where you would put the vehicles, where you'd put the showers, where you'd put the.
Yeah, so we put that in slide 7 or slide 6. It is in there.
My concern would be getting too specific. There may be opportunities to partner with the county that could get a lot of services down there, and they would need portions of that property for a dump site to run power, water, sewer right off there. So getting too specific on where things are going to actually be located might give a false sense of.
We need to probably talk to them to find out what tentatively that would look like too, because if we could tap into that, that would actually really help with overall cost. But I don't know what their timeline is. And
it's not this year's budget.
Yeah. Okay. But if we
Next
could
year at best.
put that into consideration in this, maybe that would help. But I think when you're talking 7 acres to the council, they're going to get visions of Portland. And so we need to have an idea to justify that, right? Instead of 2 acres or 3, we need to know. And they're going to ask, and they're going to be hard questions. So we need to have an idea of what we're going to do with that and why we're looking at the entire 7.
Sorry. I think our visit to Walla Walla, because they have it's I believe 100 by 300 foot space. That's not 7 acres. And so they have 30 huts in 100 by 300 foot space. And we tried to reflect that in slide 6, but I'm definitely flexible and I can work with Ray and I can work with Sean and Dr. Horton and anybody. We do have some ideas and configuration actions that are needed from a security and safety perspective. It needs to be semicircle. You have to have cameras and some of that dynamic. But I like what Chief Lynn proposed, is that you got to be careful about being too specific, because we want some flexibility in what the county will provide. And I also want to, there are possibly, because of COVID, we may have some additional flexibility with that dynamic as well. When I talked with Will Tucker in the past, they had assets and they had people and they had all kinds of resources to provide things like HIV testing and COVID testing, and there's a lot of things in the wheels here that I liked what Chief Lynn proposed, and we got to be careful about being too specific because it's flexible. It depends on what kind of happens and how we as a group build it. Because to be honest with you, my vision is to put in 100 by 300 foot sleep center and then spend the other 6 acres doing transitional housing. But I don't know if that's what the city wants, but everybody has their idea of it.
Do you think that a slide showing, and I'm looking at Lisa right now, showing what Walla Walla looks like
That would be
would
very
be
beneficial.
helpful to the council, not thinking that it's going to be a tent city?
Right. So slide 3 has a picture of what Walla Walla looks like. It's at the bottom left side, and
It's
that is
mixed in though. And I think maybe if you actually pinpointed that this is something similar to what we're thinking. It's
Yes.
not going to be a tent city. It's going to look similar to something like this.
Absolutely concur.
And have a slide that actually shows that so that they can have a visual of what you're talking about.
I will add a slide that specifically looks like what Walla Walla has and what that kind of looks like. And I think next weekend or next week, we'll be able to even get better pictures of what that looks like.
Now,
Could I make,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. Could I make the suggestion too, is to put them about halfway through your presentation so they can keep that visual in their head as they move through the presentation and not collect it at the end? Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're going to have a larger impact if you bring that particular picture up closer, at least halfway through your presentation.
Idea.
Okay. All right.
So
Sorry,
do
Larry.
we need a slide that maybe talks about the dynamic of Walla Walla and why we chose that? And here's what it looks like, and here's how it acts, and so on and so forth. And that we're replicating a dynamic such as that.
Never think about it.
I think an introduction that there are places that have been more successful than others, and Walla Walla has been one of them. And so you're modeling a lot of this after them is probably more all that they're really going to care to hear about.
Well, that is true, but I think they'll like that because that
Right.
means it's
It's
no
something
tent
that's
city going on in their head.
Right.
going on.
Right.
Right.
Perfect.
You have a plan.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. And I'll do a Walla Walla specific slide, and people can decide to add it, or we can add it as background or whatever. I think the ideal of it is a good one, and I like that ideal. So slide 6, I think, describes some of the components that we're offering. Slide 7 is a visual picture of the property, as well as it's a picture of what the sleep center could look like. It may or may not match exactly, that component. There's actually, I believe, a dual chevron is more effective, but we will, that's for later. The slide 8 talks about how. So it's kind of the steps. It's property acquisition. We talk about the 7-person Sweet Home Committee subcommittee. I can't appoint them to our board, but I can create a working committee that is responsible for Sweet Home, that is Sweet Home representatives. If the city feels like they want to create the board, I'm flexible. I'm just going based on kind of how we would do it in FAC. I talked a little bit about the showers and the laundry and mail services and aspects that we would need to set up. And then there's the approach to setting up the site. FAC And I think your community, it's important that we have some sort of winter shelter. This winter is going to be ugly. And so I'm working on plans to make sure that we have a solution for a winter shelter. And I'm hoping it's either Conestoga or whatever solution it is, because depending on what grants and other monies we're able to receive, we'll have different styles of housing. I'm not going to say it's Conestoga. It could be the pallet shelters, or it could be the lit industry shelters or whatever. Second phase is stabilization of the facility and services. And third phase is what I call final build out. And I had talked to some leaders in your community, but I don't want to presume. I mean, I certainly have my vision. I presented a vision of transitional housing, of which you could do what they call a community in a box, and I could put in another 250 units in 7 acres, and we could Airbnb them, the city could make money on them, or whatever. I mean, we could provide them as real transitional housing, but there's a lot of solutioning in this space. But you know, it's what your board, subboard wants to do and what your community wants to do. And then finally, we are actually already moving forward on hiring and resource loading and scheduling. FAC is already staging this environment should it get approved. And then we are also working with our partners to make sure that it's not just FAC, it's CSC, it's Hope Center, it's Humane Society, it's Chance, it's all the organization, Samaritan Healthcare. And actually, I've been interestingly working with some individuals with Corvallis Clinic. But anyway, there's a lot of people very interested in the success of this. And then finally, in addition to what's on the individual site there, FAC wants to locate a resource hub somewhere in the city's sweet home, because there's the sleep center and then there's a resource hub. And it may be in the same location, but it may not be.
Okay.
The next slide. I got a lot of feedback on what the prohibitions are and such. There's a lot of concerns about illegal drugs, there's weapons, alcohol. And this slide is, the intent of this is to emphasize we don't tolerate that. And we won't tolerate that. It's not it's not what people saw in the past at the winter shelter last year, where it kind of got a little out of hand. It is a sleep center that has rules and regulations and procedures and policies, and we don't tolerate illegal activities. And there's been, it's through Facebook and other components. So I wanted to emphasize that with a specific slide. Anything additional there? I did at the very end talk about children, and really we don't want children allowed in this facility because there will be individuals that are SOs and such. And so there are other facilities. I've been talking with Mike Davis with the Hope Center, and their facility is more geared towards families and women and children. And we want to kind of emphasize that with them and capitalize on that. But this facility, we don't really want children there. Measures of success, the next slide is just, it can be whatever we want, but these were some of the terms that we came up with in our grant that we received, as well as some feedback from members on the team. And we can add or subtract, or we can measure 100 times more. To be honest with you, I love Chief Lynn's measure of calls for some of our mental illness calls, and they went from 30 to 130. And we want to reduce the impact to city services as well. So I'm looking at additional measures that we can add to this, but I don't want to, again, design measures that you have to adhere to. We'll leverage those and report on those, but these were some that we came up from an FAC standpoint and some of the feedback from some of the members.
You know, I don't see, before you leave it, I don't see anything on there that actually says a measure of success is reducing the number of police calls dealing with the homeless. And I don't, there's probably a political way to say that.
Yeah, I'm happy to add that, but I didn't want to speak for Chief Lynn.
Well, let Chief Lynn speak for himself.
That would always be fantastic, but I don't know if that's the overreaching goal. Obviously, we'd like to reduce our calls for service for some of these individuals. I don't believe that's going to be necessarily realistic for some of them. So I don't want to get bogged down into setting a goal and not being able to meet that goal.
But would it be a measure of success?
It could be a measure of success, but it could be a measure of failure too if you're defining it as success.
That's okay though, right?
But we need to know that.
Well, in HP, I was taught to measure what you want to change and change what you want to measure. And if you're measuring something that isn't changeable or controllable or whatever, then you shouldn't be measuring it. I mean, I'll add whatever you want. If you'd like that, absolutely. I can add some very interesting, curious ones that are of financial benefit for Samaritan. When you look at emergency room calls and such, I can add all kinds of cost avoidance. But I caution you a little bit on cost avoidance because well, Chief Lynn can definitely speak from a police standpoint. When you start doing that, people will go, well, great, then we can reduce police officers now. And that isn't the intent of that. So you got to be careful what it is you measure there.
Services that no providers available. Yes.
Oh, so Shirley's telling me there is an incredible gap of services that there are no providers on Fridays. And we experienced this last Friday in that we had an emergency call and we had difficulty in trying to get those individual services, medical services from Samaritan and critical care services. And these people had basically maggots in their wounds, and we couldn't even get them to a facility in Sweet Home, believe it or not. So it's also, we could talk about measures in not having gaps in services, let's say. So I'm open there. Absolutely send me any messages you have or any additional ones you want to put in, and I will put them in. I will measure anything you want to measure.
I agree that the value of tracking mental health calls and homeless calls is important. I don't know that it's important to put it on a slide when you can answer it in person when they ask. If they don't ask, it's fine. Sometimes we track data we will never use or need, and other times we track data and the answers we get aren't ones we like, but we're able to look at them and say, why is this story happening this way and what we can try differently to make it improve. And so I do believe that data is hugely important, but I don't know that it needs to go on the slide.
Okay, because FAC actually, there's what, let's say 10 or so tracking mechanisms. FAC probably tracks 100 different aspects to this. And so I'm happy to track whatever it is the committee decides, or Chief Lynn, or Ray, the city manager, or the city council. I will track anything that you feel we need to track. But we need an action plan and what they call lanes or things like that. You have a high and a low boundary and such. I don't know if you know it, but I was actually a chief of staff for Hewlett Packard for the entire IT organization. And that is exactly the role I did as chief of staff. So I'm very good at tracking measures, but you tell me what you want to track and I'll tell you how I'll act.
No, I just
So you wanna
I
be
don't
sure-
think in your slide, you do not have to have everything that you're going to talk about. You just need a few points and to talk to them, but you don't want to be reading these slides. So I think we're good.
Yep.
And I guarantee you that's a question you're going to get is how are you going to define success for this endeavor? I've already gotten it from a council member or two.
Yeah.
So we're going to need to be prepared for that. Perhaps that is exactly a way to engage the council of, well, we have some things. How are you as a council also wanting to measure success? Might
So
be
what I'll
something we want
do,
to ask them is what is, you tell us. I mean, we know what we think, but again, we'll measure whatever you want us to measure.
I agree. And so I guess my thing, point back to you, Ray, is I will represent how you would like me to represent, because I can make anything successful. I'm very confident of that. How do we measure success? Well, I mean, I don't want to misrepresent how the city of Sweet Home and how the community Sweet Home wants to measure success. So you define it, I will put it in, and I will make sure we will not only meet it, but we will exceed it. So if you have, I will meet with you and I will word it however you would like me to word it. So I can be politically correct and such.
What do you got next?
So if you have additional feedback on that, I will take that. I wanted to note kind of some of the house rules. Again, at least on Facebook and some of the other components, I see a lot of dynamic. Oh, this is, you build it, they come, which is a total false argument, but I'm not going to argue that. But there was a lot on the rules. And, well, you set all these rules, you're not going to have any candidates. And I'm here to tell you, then that's fine. We won't have candidates, but it does help the city facilitate actions against individuals that don't meet the rules of the city. So, to be honest with you, if we have a facility, we provide these actions, and if there are individuals that don't want to follow those rules and sit, in some doorway somewhere, Chief Lim certainly has the authority and the authorization to evict them out of the city, essentially. So it provides the city a means to, do enforcement and other actions. It doesn't have to be, a bad thing. It could be, sending people to the hospital or whatever it might be. So I wanted to make sure I emphasize what I quote house rules. I think these will change again when we get that 7-person committee. I think the rules will be in addition to these rules, and we'll learn more from Walla Walla. But these are Walla Walla rules. I had 2 pages of that. And then the last part is backup. And I really don't want to go much into the backup. I can if people feel it's important, but really this describes FAC and the areas that we connect with all our partners and the policies, and kind of a little bit more about the dynamic of FAC and such. And then there was a slide on some timeline and so on and so forth, which we may want to move into the non-backup section. I'm flexible, whatever folks would like here.
Want to see a timeline in there?
I think in 10 minutes, you're going to be lucky to get through those 10, 11 slides. I would say if you go more than 10 minutes, you're going to be
You'll
burning
lose
your
them.
bridges.
Okay.
You cannot do 10 slides in 10 minutes. minutes. I will. I have experience in that. I'm lucky to do 3 slides in 10 minutes, but I'll make sure I can get through our initial set of slides in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then open it up for questions, and that can go longer, right?
Yeah, it's better to leave them asking questions than to give them too much information.
Right.
I agree. I agree.
We've all been there.
Okay.
Brock, I appreciate all the work you've done on it. I know it's taken a lot of your time, and I do appreciate that.
We keep throwing you curveballs, but you seem to continue to hit it, so I appreciate that.
Well, I want to do what it is. I don't want to presume, because I believe FAC is a steward of the process. We shouldn't dictate. We certainly have certain policies and procedures we have to follow. But what I want to emphasize is this is a Sweet Home Community action, not an FAC action. I mean, it could be Hope Center, it could be Samaritan, it could be some other organization. And I'm trying to design it as such that we have something that we all can be proud of, that we can all act within there. And FAC has an interest because we're out there to help people, and we're out there to get you money, and I'm hoping to get you another $1 million, from these grant writers, and we're well on our way. But I am excited that this city is considering it and working with us and wanting to help solve the problem. So I will do whatever it is you want to reflect and such. So I have, you talked about thick skin. I don't have the skin because it's your thing. And I want to make sure I reflect that. So I know I had some criticism before on certain things. No, I want it to be your thing. I don't want it to be my thing. I have certainly ideas on it, but I have a diminished background compared to, say, Ray. I mean, he's a city manager. He's been trained. He's got lots of great ideas, and we have other things that, we can help them, intertwine with.
I really wish my staff thought I had good ideas.
Crickets.
So are there any more questions that we need to go over tonight? Anything else we need to look at? Are we done?
And tell me if there are any missing slides or missing messages. I'll put them in.
So we will reconvene August 9th.
So next Monday night, 6 o'clock, right here. And if there's any way you can be here in person,
I will do
I
that.
would prefer to have you here in person.
I agree.
I like to see your facial expressions. See ours.
Absolutely.
All right.
I hope we haven't given you too much.
No. So
Really?
let's maybe recount some of the takeaways. I'm going to get the Walla Walla Section 6. I'm going to incorporate, and we'll emphasize that piece specifically. I'm getting a slide of the, let's see, I have a slide of importance. We wanted to make some adjustments. We wanted to add some tracking information. I have another action item to add a slide.
Was it the site map for the Walla Walla facility into the middle of this presentation?
Site map and the budget.
Tentative budget, yes.
Yeah, the budget piece, and I'll put that together as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
And I'll
do
be
we actually need to formally convene or to adjourn?
Are you adjourned?
No, we're going to have another meeting on the 9th and then one on the 16th.
I think you would adjourn. This is a specific meeting that we called.
Seeing no further business before us, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice evening.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Brock.
vote on it.
Thanks, Shirley.
Stay well.
We have some time, and we're moving in.